Mom smiled as she handed my sister the sleek iPhone 17, its metallic surface gleaming under our dining room lights. Amanda deserves it more, Horace. Her grades improved this semester. I stood there, the cracked screen of my ancient iPhone 7 reflecting my disbelief. When I argued it wasn't fair, they laughed, Dad saying I should earn my upgrades. Little did they know, their family business website would crash next week, and their expensive new phones wouldn't help when only I had the solution they couldn't buy. I never expected to be living with my parents again at 27, but life has a funny way of humbling you. 6 months ago, I was working as a junior developer at Tech Fusion, a promising startup that suddenly announced they were downsizing. Being one of the last hired meant I was one of the first fired. With rent in Seattle being what it is, and my savings dwindling fast, moving back to my parents' suburban home in Lakewood seemed like my only option while I took online programming courses to boost my qualifications. My parents, Frank and Diane Wilson, built their furniture business from scratch 20 years ago. Wilson's Fine Furnishings started as a small storefront and grew into a respectable local business with 3 locations across the county. They were old-school entrepreneurs who believed in handshakes and paper ledgers. The digital revolution nearly left them behind until I convinced them to establish an online presence during my freshman year of college. The website I built for them was basic but functional, allowing customers to browse inventory and make inquiries. They never fully appreciated how much business it actually brought them. My sister Amanda, 3 years younger than me at 24, was always the golden child. Where I struggled with traditional academics but excelled with computers, Amanda breezed through school with straight A's. She'd recently graduated with a business degree from a prestigious university and moved back home temporarily while starting her career. Our parents never missed an opportunity to highlight the contrast between us. Tonight was supposed to be a family dinner celebrating Amanda's new job offer from Sterling Marketing Group. Mom prepared her famous pot roast with all the fixings, Dad uncorked an expensive bottle of wine, and the conversation revolved entirely around Amanda's accomplishments. I sat quietly, picking at my food and occasionally checking emails on my iPhone 7 with its spiderweb screen that I'd been asking to replace for months. "Put that old thing away at the dinner table, Horace," Dad said with a dismissive wave. "We have something special to announce." Mom disappeared into the hallway and returned with a glossy white box tied with a blue ribbon. Amanda's eyes widened as Mom placed it in front of her. "For our brilliant daughter on her new beginning," Mom announced proudly. Amanda tore through the wrapping to reveal the brand new iPhone 17, the model that had only been released last week. It cost well over $1,000, with its holographic display capabilities and enhanced reality features. "Oh my God," Amanda squealed, jumping from her chair to hug both parents. "This is amazing! You deserve it, sweetheart," Mom said, beaming. "Your hard work through business school, landing such a prestigious position right out of college. We couldn't be prouder." I felt my jaw tighten. 3 months ago, when I showed them my cracked screen and explained how my phone randomly shut down during job search calls, they told me money was tight with the economy being what it is. "Wait, I don't understand," I said, holding up my damaged phone. "When I asked about upgrading, you said business was slow and expenses were high." The room fell silent for a moment before Dad cleared his throat. "Amanda deserves it more, Horace. Her grades improved this semester, and this job is a real career move. You're between situations right now." "Between situations?" "I lost my job in a company-wide layoff. That wasn't my fault, and I'm working harder than ever to skill up. How is this fair?" Mom sighed heavily, that familiar look of disappointment crossing her face. "Horace, please don't ruin Amanda's moment with your jealousy. When you have something real to celebrate, perhaps you'll get something too." "Something real? I built your entire business website from scratch. I maintain it for free. I've saved you thousands in IT costs for years." Dad laughed. Actually laughed. "That little web page? Amanda's friend says it's completely outdated. Besides, you should earn your upgrades, not expect handouts." Amanda earned this. I pushed back from the table, appetite gone. "I'm going to my room." "Congratulations on the phone, Amanda." Later that night, I heard Amanda on the phone with her friend Brittany, voice carrying through our shared wall. "Yeah, the new iPhone is awesome." "No, I didn't tell them I paid for half of it myself. They think it's completely their gift. It's better this way. They're so happy thinking they're supporting my career. I froze, processing what I just overheard. The generous gift my parents had used to demonstrate their preferential treatment wasn't even entirely from them. Amanda had manipulated the situation to make herself look even more deserving. This pattern of favoritism wasn't new. It stretched back to our childhood when Amanda's A-plus art projects would dominate the refrigerator while my computer coding competition certificates gathered dust in my desk drawer. In third grade, Amanda won a spelling bee and got a new bike. That same year, I taught myself basic HTML and created a family website that nobody acknowledged. In high school, Amanda's acceptance to business school warranted a family vacation to Disneyland. My acceptance into a respected computer science program was met with concerned lectures about job prospects and student loans. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the familiar weight of being the lesser-valued child settled over me. But this time, something felt different. Maybe it was the blatant unfairness of the phone situation, or maybe it was finally recognizing this pattern would never change unless I forced it to. Either way, I decided it was time to stand up for myself. I just had no idea the opportunity would come so soon, or that it would arrive in the form of a catastrophe that would test all of us. The next morning, I found my parents in the kitchen. Dad sat at the table with his coffee and newspaper, while Mom scrambled eggs at the stove. Amanda had already left for a breakfast meeting with her new boss. Taking a deep breath, I decided it was time for a direct conversation. "I'd like to talk about what happened last night," I said, pouring myself coffee. Dad folded his newspaper. "If this is about the phone again, we're not having this conversation. It's not just about the phone. It's about what it represents. It's about years of you treating Amanda differently than me." Mom turned from the stove. "That's ridiculous, Horace. We've always treated you both equally. Have you? When was the last time you celebrated any of my achievements? Do you even know what I'm working on right now?" "Of course we do," Dad said defensively. "You're taking some online courses. I'm completing an advanced certification in full-stack development with machine learning integration. It's highly specialized and will make me extremely marketable. But you wouldn't know that because you've never asked." Mom placed a plate of eggs in front of Dad. "The difference is that Amanda applies herself, Horace. She always has. You've bounced around from one computer thing to another without any clear direction. I've been in tech my entire career. That's not bouncing around. That's developing expertise in my field." "Your sister graduated top of her class," Dad interjected. "She has a clear career path. What do you have to show after all these years? A layoff and moving back home?" The familiar sting of their dismissal burned in my chest. "I maintain your entire business website. I'm the one you call when your computers break down, or when you need help with anything technical. I've saved you thousands of dollars over the years. And we let you live here rent-free," Mom countered. "We feed you. We've supported all your computer hobbies." "They're not hobbies, Mom. It's my profession. And Amanda lives here rent-free too. But somehow that's different?" Dad's face hardened. "Amanda is investing in her future. She's networking, building connections. You sit in your room all day staring at a screen? I'm working. I'm studying. Just because you don't understand what I do doesn't make it less valuable." The back door opened, and Amanda walked in. "What's with all the yelling?" Dad sighed. "Your brother is upset about your new phone." "Really, Horace? That's pretty childish," Amanda said, setting down her purse. "Maybe if you had a real job instead of playing with websites, you could buy your own phone." "Playing with websites? I built our parents' entire online presence. That little web page Dad laughed about yesterday brings in 30% of their business revenue." Amanda rolled her eyes. "Well, it looks like it was made in 2010. My friend Jackson says it's embarrassingly outdated." "Jackson? The guy who dropped out of his community college web design class? That's who you're taking advice from now?" "At least he has a clear vision," Mom interjected. "Amanda showed us some of his design concepts for modern business sites. Very impressive." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So my years of education, my professional experience, my ongoing maintenance of your site, all of that means nothing compared to some mock-ups from Amanda's friend? "Don't twist our words," Dad said sternly. "We appreciate what you've done, but perhaps it's time for a fresh perspective." I grabbed my jacket from the chair. "I need some air." That's your problem, Horace, Amanda called after me. You always walk away when things don't go your way. I slammed the door behind me and walked several blocks before my pulse started to normalize. This was a familiar cycle. I'd point out the unfairness. They'd dismiss my concerns and nothing would change. Only this time, I had heard something that made me feel like I was losing my mind. They were actually considering replacing my work with that of Amanda's community college dropout friend. As I scrolled through my phone to distract myself, a notification from our family group chat appeared. It was photos of my parents and Amanda at Clarkson Lake last weekend, a trip I knew nothing about. Scrolling back through previous messages, I discovered they'd been planning weekend activities without including me for months. Small excursions, dinners out, even a day trip to the coast. All carefully orchestrated when I was busy with coursework or job searches. While sitting at a local coffee shop, trying to process this revelation, my email pinged with a message that temporarily lifted my spirits. Nexus Solutions, a growing tech firm in the area, wanted to interview me for a junior developer position with potential for advancement. The role aligned perfectly with the certification I was completing, and the company had an excellent reputation. For a moment, I allowed myself to feel hopeful. Maybe this was the break I needed, a chance to move out, establish independence, and reset my relationship with my family from a position of strength rather than dependence. As I walked back home, I overheard voices from the open window of my father's home office. I think we should let Amanda take over the digital marketing completely, my father was saying. Fresh blood, new ideas. What about Horace's website? Mom asked. Amateur hour, Dad replied dismissively. It was fine for getting started, but Amanda's marketing degree gives her a real understanding of business strategy. Jackson says he can build us something much more sophisticated. Should we tell Horace? Let's wait until everything's in place. You know how sensitive he gets. I stood frozen on the lawn, their words confirming my worst fears. Not only did they value Amanda more personally, but they were actively planning to erase my contributions to the family business. The rejection was complete, as a son, as a professional, as a contributor to the family's success. I quietly entered through the side door and went straight to my room, my mind racing. The job interview suddenly took on even greater significance. It wasn't just about career advancement anymore. It was about survival, emotional, and financial. I needed to break free from this cycle of diminishment before it broke me entirely. The interview at Nexus Solutions went better than I could have hoped. The technical assessment played to my strengths, and my answers about problem-solving and team collaboration seemed to impress the panel. The lead developer, Marcia, particularly appreciated my approach to their case study on database optimization. We'll be in touch within the week, the HR director said warmly as she walked me out. But between us, I think you made quite an impression. Driving home, I debated whether to share this potential good news with my family. A part of me craved their approval and congratulations, but experience had taught me to protect my hopes from their dismissal. I decided to keep it to myself until I had a firm offer. No sense giving them ammunition if things didn't pan out. That evening, we gathered for another family dinner. This time, Amanda dominated the conversation with her ideas for modernizing our parents' furniture business. So I've been thinking about our online strategy, she announced, pulling out her new iPhone 17 to display some images. Jackson and I worked up these mock-ups for a completely revamped website. My parents leaned forward eagerly as Amanda swiped through garish designs with animated furniture and pulsating sale buttons. We could implement a full e-commerce solution, Amanda continued, with virtual room designers and social media integration. Jackson says he can build the whole thing for $5,000, which is an absolute steal. I nearly choked on my water. $5,000? That's ridiculous for what he's showing you. Those are just cookie-cutter templates with our logo slapped on them. Dad gave me a warning look. Horace, please? No, I'm serious. Those designs would actually hurt conversion rates. They're cluttered, slow-loading, and they don't emphasize what makes your business unique. Jackson graduated from his design program with honors, Amanda countered, though I knew this was a lie. Maybe we should hear Horace out, Mom said, surprising me. He does have experience with our site. I sat up straighter, pulling out my old phone. The current site needs updating, I agree, but we should focus on improving the user experience, not just making it flashier. I could show you some. The problem, Amanda interrupted, is that Horace is thinking like a programmer, not a marketer. Customers don't care about back-end efficiency. They care about how things look and feel. Actually, they care about both, I said. A beautiful site that takes 20 seconds to load loses customers. Dad cleared his throat. We've already decided to go with Jackson's proposal. He's coming tomorrow to discuss the contract details. The familiar feeling of being steamrolled washed over me. You're making a mistake. At least let me review his technical specifications before you commit. Always the negative one, Amanda sighed. This is why you struggle to advance, Horace. You can't recognize innovation when you see it. This isn't innovation. It's overpriced window dressing. Mom placed her hand over mine in what I'm sure she thought was a comforting gesture. We appreciate everything you've done with the website, honey, but it's time for a professional approach. The implication that my work wasn't professional stung deeply. I'd maintained their site through my college years, my first job, and even after being laid off. I'd updated security protocols, optimized loading times, and implemented mobile responsiveness long before their competitors. Fine, I said quietly. It's your business. Your decision. After dinner, I headed upstairs to my room to find the door open and boxes stacked in the hallway. My belongings had been packed up, my desk disassembled, and my bookshelves emptied. Oh good, you're back, Mom said, appearing behind me. We needed to make some changes. Amanda needs a proper home office for her marketing work, so we're moving you to the guest room. I stared at the boxes in disbelief. You packed up all my things without asking me? We knew you'd be at your interview all day. It seemed like the perfect time to get it done. The guest room is perfectly nice, Horace. The guest room was half the size of my bedroom, with just enough space for a twin bed and small dresser. There was no desk area for my computer setup, no shelving for my books and equipment. Where am I supposed to work? I need space for my monitors and desktop. Mom looked genuinely perplexed. Can't you just use your laptop on the bed? Amanda needs the larger space for client meetings and her design work. You could have asked me first. These are my things, my private space. Don't be dramatic. You're only here temporarily anyway, right? Until you find another job? The casual dismissal of my needs and privacy felt like yet another confirmation of my second-class status in the family. I wordlessly began carrying boxes to the guest room, rearranging the small space to accommodate at least my most essential equipment. Later that night, unable to sleep in the unfamiliar room with my belongings, still mostly in boxes, I went downstairs for water. On the bottom shelf of the living room bookcase, I noticed the family scrapbooks Mom had meticulously maintained throughout our childhood. Curious, I pulled out the one labeled High School Years and began flipping through. The pattern was unmistakable. Amanda's pages were elaborate, with multiple photos of each event, detailed captions, and preserved mementos, honor roll certificates, prom tickets, even pressed corsages. My sections were sparse by comparison, a single photo of graduation, a small clipping from the school paper about the coding team, no memorabilia. I grabbed another album, Family Vacations, and found the same discrepancy. Numerous photos of Amanda with our parents at landmarks, enjoying activities, being celebrated. I appeared in fewer than a third of the family photos, often captured almost as an afterthought, half turned away, or at the edge of the frame. The visual evidence of what I'd felt for years hit me with unexpected force. This wasn't just my perception, or sensitivity. The photographic record of our family history literally minimized my presence and contributions, while amplifying Amanda's. I carefully returned the albums to their shelf, a hollow feeling expanding in my chest. The realization that this pattern was so deeply ingrained, so normalized within our family dynamic that it had shaped even our documented history, left me feeling more alone than ever in my childhood home. As I climbed the stairs back to my newly assigned room, I passed Amanda's door, my former room, and heard her laughing on the phone, likely planning the next phase of her takeover of my contributions to the family. In that moment, I wondered if anything would ever be enough to make them see me, truly see me, with the same admiration and respect they so readily gave my sister. 3 days later, my phone rang with the call I'd been waiting for. Marcia from Nexus Solutions offered me the junior developer position with a salary that exceeded my expectations, along with benefits and growth opportunities. We were really impressed with your technical skills and problem-solving approach, she said. When can you start? 2 weeks would be perfect, I replied, already calculating how quickly I could find an apartment and move out of my parents' house. Wonderful. We'll email the official offer letter today. Welcome to the team, Horace. After ending the call, I sat on the edge of my bed, allowing the good news to wash over me. This was the fresh start I needed: professional recognition, financial independence, and the chance to establish myself on my own terms, away from the shadow of family comparisons. Rather than sharing the news at home, I texted my friend Taylor, who had been my sounding board throughout the job search process. We arranged to meet for dinner to celebrate. To new beginnings, Taylor said, raising a glass at a local steakhouse that evening. I'm really proud of you, Horace. You didn't let the layoff define you, and you didn't give up. Thanks for being there through all the venting sessions, I replied. It means a lot to have someone who actually believes in me. Taylor's expression turned serious. Have things gotten any better at home? I shook my head, recounting the bedroom reassignment and website replacement plans. It's clear I'm just occupying space until I leave. Which, thankfully, will be soon. You know, Taylor said carefully, at some point you might need to set some real boundaries with your family. Not just physical distance, but emotional boundaries too. It's not healthy how they treat you. Easier said than done. They don't exactly listen to me. Sometimes people only understand when circumstances force them to. You've been their technical safety net for years. Maybe they need to experience what life is like without your constant support. Before I could respond, my phone erupted with multiple notifications. Text messages from both parents and 3 missed calls in the span of 5 minutes. As I was about to check them, the phone rang again. My father. Horace, where are you? His voice was tight with panic. I'm out to dinner. What's going on? The website is down, completely crashed. We can't access anything, and we have the spring sale starting tomorrow. Hundreds of customers were notified about online exclusives, and now they can't even see our inventory. I felt a strange calm settle over me as the situation clarified. Have you called Amanda's friend Jackson? He's your website guy now, right? We can't reach him. Amanda says his phone is going straight to voicemail. Horace, this is serious. We could lose thousands in sales. What about Amanda's marketing expertise? Can't she fix it? This isn't funny. This is a real technical emergency. We need you to come home right now and fix this. I glanced at Taylor, who could clearly hear my father's raised voice through the phone. I'll be there in about an hour. I need to finish my dinner first. An hour? Horace, the business is in crisis, and I'm in the middle of a celebration dinner. I'll be there when I finish. I ended the call before he could protest further. Taylor raised an eyebrow. Celebration dinner? I didn't tell them about the job, and I think I'll keep it that way for now. For the first time in days, I felt something like power in the dynamic with my family. Let's order dessert. When I finally arrived home, the scene was chaotic. My parents sat at the dining room table with multiple devices open, frantically trying different approaches to access the website. Amanda paced nearby, her new iPhone 17 pressed to her ear. He's still not answering, she reported, hanging up. But I'm sure Jackson will call back soon. He's probably just busy with another client. Dad looked up when I entered. Finally! We've been trying everything. The site is completely unresponsive, and customers are calling wondering if the sale is still happening. I set down my keys and calmly took a seat at the table. Tell me exactly what happened. We don't know, Mom exclaimed. Everything was fine this morning. Then around 6 o'clock, customers started calling, saying they couldn't place orders. We checked, and the entire site was down, just a blank page with some error message. What error message specifically? Dad pulled out his phone to show me a screenshot. Internal server error 500. And when did Jackson start working on the site? Did he make any changes today? Amanda shifted uncomfortably. He got access yesterday. He was supposed to just look around and make a plan, not change anything yet. I nodded slowly. Let me see the admin credentials he used. After reviewing the access logs, I discovered that Jackson had indeed made significant changes, not just exploring, but implementing what appeared to be a complete back-end overhaul without proper testing or backup protocols. Worse, there were traces of suspicious code that looked deliberately inserted to cause problems. After several hours of investigation, I discovered the full extent of the disaster. Jackson had not only broken the site's functionality, but had also inserted malicious code that was attempting to capture customer payment details. The database was corrupted, and most concerning of all, I found evidence that someone had accessed the business financial records through a backdoor in the system. This isn't just incompetence. I explained to my increasingly pale-faced family around 3 in the morning. This looks deliberate. Your entire customer database is compromised, and there's evidence that your business banking information has been accessed. Are you saying we were hacked? Dad asked incredulously. Not hacked. This was done with admin credentials. Jackson didn't just break your website. He was setting up to steal from you and your customers. Amanda shook her head vigorously. No, that's impossible. Jackson wouldn't do that. He's my friend. When did you actually meet Jackson? I asked. 6 months ago, at a marketing seminar. He approached me afterward, said he recognized me from my social media, and was impressed with my business insights. The pieces fell into place. So a stranger approached you, built up a friendship suspiciously quickly, showed interest in your family's business, and then convinced you to give him access to your entire business infrastructure? Amanda's face crumpled as the realization hit her. I thought he was helping me impress everyone. Dad ran his hands through his hair. How bad is this, Horace? Can you fix it? I leaned back in my chair, considering the complexity of the situation. I can, but it's not a quick fix. The entire system needs to be restored from backups, security vulnerabilities patched, and a complete audit performed to see what data was compromised. How long will that take? Mom asked anxiously. 3 days minimum. Maybe longer. 3 days? The sale starts in 5 hours. We've invested thousands in advertising. I closed my laptop and stood up. I understand it's a crisis, but this is what happens when you hand over sensitive systems to unvetted friends instead of trusting qualified professionals. The pointed remark hung in the air as my family exchanged uncomfortable glances. What will it cost to fix this? Dad finally asked. Whatever your rate is, we'll pay it. The question surprised me. You've never paid me before. Why start now? Because this is different. This is an emergency. I nodded slowly, understanding the truth behind his words. My regular contributions were expected and taken for granted. Only a crisis made them see value in my skills. I'll think about it, I said, gathering my things. I need some sleep before I can start on this. As I turned to leave, Mom called after me. Horace, wait. Would a new phone help? We could get you that iPhone you wanted? The transparent attempt at bribery in their moment of desperation was both sad and revelatory. When they needed me, suddenly material rewards appeared, the very things they'd denied when I simply deserved them as their son. I don't need a phone, Mom. What I needed was acknowledgement and respect. Let me sleep on how I want to approach this situation. In my small guest room, I began preliminary recovery work, despite my statement about needing sleep. The situation was actually worse than I'd let on. The damage to the system was extensive, but systematic, suggesting someone with actual skill rather than just malicious intent. As I dug deeper into the corrupted files, I discovered something even more disturbing. Hidden among the business records was evidence of financial irregularities going back several months. Small amounts had been siphoned from the business accounts, never enough to trigger immediate concern, but totaling over $15,000 when added together. The transfers were disguised as vendor payments, but the receiving account belonged to a shell company recently established. More shocking still was the name on the incorporation papers for that shell company. Amanda Wilson. My sister hadn't just been duped by her friend Jackson. She had been actively stealing from our parents' business. The website sabotage appeared to be Jackson's own scheme, perhaps after Amanda refused to share her illicit gains or threatened to end their arrangement. I sat back, staring at the undeniable evidence on my screen, feeling a complex mix of vindication and sadness. The golden child's pedestal was about to crumble, and while a part of me had longed for my parents to see Amanda's true colors, another part recognized how painful this revelation would be for everyone. With this leverage, I could simply expose Amanda and watch the family dynamic implode. But that wouldn't bring healing or change. It would just create a new kind of pain. Instead, I began formulating a plan that might actually lead to growth, One that would require Amanda to face her actions, my parents to confront their favoritism, and all of us to rebuild on more honest foundations. The solution to their technical crisis would become the pathway to addressing our deeper family dysfunction. Morning arrived with renewed panic from my parents. The spring sale was officially live, but their website displayed only an error message. Phone calls from confused customers flooded in, and their social media pages filled with questions and complaints. I emerged from my room after only 3 hours of sleep, having worked through the night on analysis and recovery planning. My family sat around the kitchen table, expressions grim. "We're having to turn away online orders," Dad said, his voice strained. "The inventory system is completely inaccessible. We can't even tell customers if items are in stock at different locations." "Did you reach Jackson?" I asked Amanda. She nodded miserably. "He finally answered this morning. Claimed there must have been a server issue on the hosting company's end. Said he'd look into it, but might not have time until next week." Then he stopped responding again. "Not surprising," I remarked, pouring coffee. "He knows exactly what he did." "Can you fix it, Horace?" Mom asked, her usual composure fractured by genuine fear. "Your father calculated we could lose up to $30,000 if this continues through the weekend." "Possibly more," Dad added. "And that's not counting the damage to our reputation." I took a slow sip of coffee, organizing my thoughts. "I can fix it. But we need to talk about terms first." My parents exchanged glances. "Terms?" Dad echoed. "Yes. This isn't a simple repair job. The entire system is compromised. Customer data, business records, payment processing, everything needs to be secured and rebuilt. That's specialized work under emergency conditions. Whatever it costs," Mom said quickly. "Name your price." "It's not just about money. I need complete authority over the recovery process. No interference. No second-guessing my methods or timeline." Dad nodded impatiently. "Fine, fine. Just tell us how soon." "I'm not finished," I interrupted calmly. "I also need acknowledgement of why we're in this situation to begin with." The room fell silent. Amanda stared at the table, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "What exactly do you mean?" Mom asked cautiously. "I mean acknowledging that my expertise was dismissed in favor of Amanda's friend because of your pattern of favoring her decisions over mine. I mean recognizing that if you'd listened to my warnings about Jackson, none of this would have happened." Dad's face flushed. "This isn't the time for personal grievances, Horace. The business is in crisis." "It's exactly the time," I countered, "because this crisis is the direct result of how this family operates. Amanda is automatically trusted and supported. I'm automatically questioned and dismissed. And now look where we are." "That's not fair," Mom protested weakly. "Isn't it? When was the last time you celebrated any of my accomplishments? When have you ever given me the benefit of the doubt the way you do Amanda?" Silence fell again, heavier this time. "I need to consider whether I want to get involved in this situation at all," I continued. "I'll let you know my decision this afternoon. In the meantime, I suggest you contact your insurance company and prepare for significant losses." I stood to leave, but Amanda's voice stopped me. "Wait, you. You're right, Horace." 3 pairs of surprised eyes turned to her. "I pushed for Jackson because I wanted to prove myself," she admitted. "I wanted to show I could contribute to the business in a way that you couldn't. I was jealous of your technical skills, how effortlessly you understand systems that baffle me. And now I've ruined everything." The raw honesty in her voice was unexpected. For the first time in years, I saw my sister without the protective armor of being the favored child, just a young woman who had made terrible mistakes and now faced their consequences. "You haven't ruined everything," I said more gently. "But we all need to be honest about what's happening here." I returned to my room and began implementing the first phase of recovery, creating secure backups of all salvageable data. While the corrupted system was a disaster, I had maintained my own separate backups of the critical business data from when I originally built the system. It wasn't current, but it provided a foundation to rebuild from. Throughout the day, I worked methodically, occasionally emerging for food or coffee. My parents gave me wide berth, clearly afraid of saying anything that might disrupt my willingness to help. By evening, I had a clearer picture of the total damage and a structured recovery plan. I called a family meeting in the dining room, where I laid out the situation with clinical precision. The entire e-commerce system needs to be rebuilt from scratch. The customer database was compromised but recoverable. The inventory management system can be restored from my personal backups, with about a 20% data loss that will need manual updating. How long until we're operational again? Dad asked. 72 hours for basic functionality. Another week for complete restoration with enhanced security. Mom looked devastated. The sale will be over by then. This could set the business back months. I have a temporary solution for the sale, I offered. A simplified landing page that explains the technical difficulties, offers special in-store incentives, and captures contact information for online orders to be processed manually. It won't be elegant, but it will prevent total disaster. Relief visibly washed over my parents. You can do that by tomorrow? Dad asked hopefully. I can have it live in 6 hours. But there's something else we need to discuss first. I opened my laptop and turned it to face them. I found evidence of financial irregularities in the business accounts. Dad frowned. What kind of irregularities? Small unauthorized transfers over the past several months, totaling just over $15,000. They were disguised as vendor payments, but went to a shell company. I paused, looking directly at Amanda. A shell company registered in your name. The color drained from Amanda's face. My parents stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible, Mom whispered. Amanda? Dad's voice cracked on her name. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. I was going to pay it back. All of it. I just needed to establish my own consulting business. But I had all these student loans and the apartment deposit in the city, and I wanted to look successful. You stole from us? Dad's question came out as a pained whisper. I didn't think of it as stealing, she pleaded. More like, I'm borrowing against my future contributions to the business. Jackson said it was a standard practice for family businesses. Jackson again, I noted quietly. Did it get a cut? Amanda nodded miserably. 30% for showing me how to do it. My parents sat in stunned silence, their worldview visibly crumbling as they processed their golden child's betrayal. I've secured the accounts to prevent further unauthorized access, I said, after giving them a moment to absorb the shock. But you'll need to decide how to handle this as a family. There must be some explanation, Mom said weakly. Amanda wouldn't do this without a good reason. The instinctive defense of Amanda, even in the face of irrefutable evidence, was so predictable it would have been comical if it weren't so painful to witness. There's no good reason for theft, Mom, I said gently. But there might be understandable pressures that led to bad decisions. The question is what happens now. Dad looked up at me, his expression shattered. What do you think should happen? The question surprised me. He'd never asked for my opinion on a significant family matter before. I think we need honesty, all of us, about the patterns that led us here, the favoritism, the different expectations. I think Amanda needs to take responsibility, but I also think you both need to examine your role in creating a dynamic where one child felt entitled to take, while the other felt perpetually invisible. The silence that followed was different from any I'd experienced in that house before. It wasn't tense or angry, but thoughtful, as if my words had created space for genuine reflection. I'll start working on the temporary landing page, I said, standing. We can continue this conversation tomorrow, after everyone's had time to process. As I turned to leave, Dad spoke again. Horace, thank you, not just for helping with the website, but for being the adult in the room right now. It wasn't quite an apology or an acknowledgement of years of unfair treatment, but it was something, a crack in the facade, a beginning. By the following afternoon, I had successfully implemented the temporary landing page with a streamlined contact form. It wasn't a full solution, but it allowed customers to submit their information and purchase intentions, which the store staff could then process manually. The business was bleeding money much slower now, buying us time for the complete rebuild. While I worked, my parents had been unnervingly quiet. They moved around the house like ghosts, processing the dual shocks of the website sabotage and Amanda's betrayal. Amanda had locked herself in her room, emerging only briefly for bathroom trips, her eyes red and swollen. Around 4 o'clock, I had made enough progress on the core system recovery to take a break. I found my parents sitting in the living room, talking in low voices that stopped when I entered. How's it going? Dad asked tentatively. Making progress. I've recovered most of the customer database and order history. starting on the inventory system next. Mom twisted her hands in her lap. We've been talking about everything you said, about the favoritism and the different expectations. We'd like to have a family meeting, Dad added. All four of us. To clear the air and figure out how to move forward. I nodded cautiously. That's probably a good idea. But first, Mom said, we want to know if you can fully recover the website. The truth, Horace, even if it's not what we want to hear. The direct question, without assumptions or dismissal, felt like a small but significant shift. Yes, I can recover it. In fact, I can make it better than before, with proper security protocols and more efficient functionality. But it will take time and focused effort. They exchanged glances before Dad spoke again. We'll pay you properly for this work. Professional rates. We should have been doing that all along. It's not about the money, I replied. It's about respect and recognition. We understand that now, Mom said softly. At least, we're beginning to. We agreed to meet for dinner as a family and have an open conversation about everything. I returned to my work, cautiously hopeful, but realistic about the challenges ahead. Years of established patterns wouldn't change overnight, no matter how dramatic the catalyst. At dinner, Amanda finally joined us, looking thoroughly defeated. The table was silent at first, the weight of unspoken truths, making casual conversation impossible. I've prepared a presentation, I said finally, opening my laptop, about the website recovery, but also about some other things we need to address. A presentation? Dad raised an eyebrow. It's how I organize my thoughts best. Bear with me. I turned the screen so everyone could see, and began with a technical overview of the website recovery process, explaining in accessible terms what had happened and how I was fixing it. My parents nodded along, asking relevant questions that showed they were genuinely trying to understand my work for perhaps the first time. Then I shifted to the second part of my presentation, family dynamics. A historical analysis. Is this really necessary? Mom asked uncomfortably. Yes, because the technical crisis and the family issues are connected. We can't fix one without addressing the other. I presented a timeline of significant family events, carefully documented with specific examples of differential treatment between Amanda and me. High school graduations. Amanda got a car, I got a watch. College acceptances, Amanda's warranted a family vacation, mine a practical discussion about finances. Career milestones. Amanda's first internship was celebrated with a party. My first programming job acknowledged with a card. The pattern, laid out visually and factually, was undeniable. This isn't about making anyone feel guilty, I explained. It's about recognizing patterns so we can change them. Dad cleared his throat. Horace, I had no idea it was so consistent. When you look at it all together like this, we never meant to make you feel less valued, Mom added, her voice thick with emotion. Intentions and impact are different things, I replied. I know you didn't wake up each day planning to favor Amanda, but the cumulative effect over years was significant. Amanda had been silent throughout the presentation, tears streaming down her face. I always knew, she said finally. I always knew I was treated differently, given more, expected less of. It made me feel special, but also terrified of failing. Like if I wasn't perfect, I'd lose the only thing that made me valuable in this family. Her admission hung in the air, a surprising perspective that I had never considered how the favoritism had trapped her as well, in a different way. The final part of my presentation, I continued after a moment, is about solutions. I've fixed the website's immediate crisis, but I haven't yet unlocked the fully recovered system. What do you mean unlocked? Dad asked. I mean, I've completed the recovery work, but I'm withholding the access codes until we address the deeper issues. I'm not using this as leverage to punish anyone, but as an opportunity for real change. That sounds like blackmail, Mom said, though without real anger. It's a boundary. For the first time in my life, I'm requiring that my needs be taken seriously in this family. I took a deep breath. I've accepted a job offer at Nexus Solutions. I start in 2 weeks. I'll be moving out as soon as I find an apartment. My parents looked genuinely shocked. A job offer? When did this happen? Dad asked. 4 days ago. I didn't tell you because, historically, my accomplishments haven't warranted much attention. The harsh truth landed heavily. I propose that before I provide the access codes to the recovered system, we all attend a family counseling session. One session, with a professional mediator, to establish new patterns of communication and expectations. Counseling? Dad looked skeptical. Is that really necessary? Yes. Because without intervention, we'll fall back into the same patterns once the crisis passes. Amanda will remain the golden child despite her serious breach of trust. I'll remain the overlooked technical support person. And nothing will really change. I think it's a good idea, Amanda said, surprising everyone. I don't want to be who I was anymore. I don't want to be the person who thought it was okay to steal from her parents because she was special. Mom reached for Dad's hand across the table. We'll do it. Whatever it takes to heal this family. And the business website? Dad asked. When will you unlock it? After our first counseling session. That's my condition. The tension in the room shifted subtly, not gone, but transforming from hostility and defensiveness into something more productive. For perhaps the first time, we were speaking honestly as adults, acknowledging painful truths, without the usual deflections and dismissals. There's one more thing you should know, I said, closing my laptop. The embezzlement. If we report it officially, it could have serious legal consequences for Amanda. My sister's face paled further. I'm not suggesting we should report it. But there needs to be a concrete plan for repayment and accountability, not just vague promises. Dad nodded slowly. That's fair. We'll work out a formal repayment agreement, with interest. And consequences, if the terms aren't met, I added. Yes, Dad agreed, looking at Amanda. Real consequences. Amanda nodded, accepting this new reality where her actions had repercussions, where being the favorite didn't exempt her from responsibility. Then we have a plan, I concluded. I'll continue the technical recovery work. Mom will arrange a counseling appointment. Amanda will draft a repayment agreement for review. And Dad will document the full extent of the website breach for insurance purposes. As we cleared the dinner table together, the atmosphere had shifted, not to perfect harmony or instant resolution, but to something previously rare in our household: mutual respect and shared purpose. Later that night, Amanda knocked on the door of my small guest room. Can we talk? She asked hesitantly. I invited her in, and she perched awkwardly on the edge of the bed. I never thanked you, she said, for not just exposing everything immediately, for giving me a chance to admit what I did myself. Would you have admitted it if I hadn't found the evidence? She considered this honestly. Probably not. I'd convinced myself it wasn't really stealing, that I deserved special treatment because I was special. She looked around the cramped room. I'm sorry about taking your bedroom without asking. That was selfish. Yes, it was. I've been thinking about why I did all this the money, Jackson, trying to replace your website work. I think I was jealous of you. I couldn't help but laugh. Jealous? Of the unfavored child? Why? Because you have real skills. Valuable skills that you built yourself. I have a business degree and good grades, but what can I actually do? Nothing practical. Nothing that creates real value. My whole identity was wrapped up in being Mom and Dad's perfect daughter. But you could walk away and be fine on your own merit. Her insight surprised me. I had never considered that my independence might be something she envied, while I was envying her favored status. We really messed this up, didn't we? I said, both playing our assigned roles and making ourselves miserable in the process. Amanda nodded. Do you think we can change it? Really change it? I don't know, but I'm willing to try if you are. She held out her hand tentatively. Partners in family rehabilitation? I shook it, allowing myself to hope that something new and healthier might be possible between us. Partners. The family counseling session was scheduled for Saturday morning with Dr. Melissa Randall, a therapist specializing in family systems. We arrived separately, my parents together, Amanda and I in our own cars, a small symbol of our evolving independence within the family unit. Dr. Randall's office was neutral territory, with comfortable seating arranged in a circle rather than the confrontational setup I had half expected. She began by establishing ground rules. No interrupting, no personal attacks, speak only from personal experience using I statements. I understand you're here because of a family crisis that exposed some long-standing patterns, she said after introductions. Who would like to start by explaining what brought you here today? My father cleared his throat. I will. Our family business website was sabotaged by someone our daughter Amanda trusted. During the recovery process, our son Horace discovered that Amanda had been taking money from the business without permission. But the real issue is that these events exposed a pattern of favoritism toward Amanda that I, didn't fully recognize until now. His straightforward acknowledgement, without defensiveness, surprised me. Perhaps the stark evidence I had presented, combined with the business crisis, had finally broken through his denial. I've treated my children differently their entire lives, Mom added, her voice tight with emotion. I didn't see it clearly until Horace showed us the pattern with specific examples. We're here because we want to change that dynamic before it causes more damage. Dr. Randall nodded. That's a powerful starting point. Many families never reach this level of awareness. Amanda, would you like to share your perspective? Amanda shifted in her seat. I took advantage of being the favorite. I used it to get away with things Horace never could have, including stealing from my parents' business. Her voice broke slightly. I told myself I deserved special treatment because I was special. But really, I was just scared of failing, of losing the only thing that made me valuable to them. And, Horace? Your perspective? I took a deep breath. I've spent my life trying to earn the same recognition and respect that Amanda received automatically. When that didn't work, I retreated into my technical skills, the one area where I had value that couldn't be dismissed. But I also grew increasingly resentful, waiting for a moment like this when they'd finally see the unfairness. That's not healthy either. Over the next 2 hours, Dr. Randall guided us through a structured conversation that dug deeper than any we'd ever had as a family. My father revealed how his own father had pressured him to go into business rather than pursue his interest in teaching, and how he had unconsciously projected those expectations onto me, while allowing Amanda the freedom he had been denied. I wanted you to be practical, secure, he admitted. I didn't understand your computer work, but I understood Amanda's business degree. It was familiar, safe. Mom disclosed how her own achievements had been overlooked in her family in favor of her brothers, creating a subconscious determination to elevate her daughter. I thought I was correcting the imbalance I experienced, she said. Instead, I just created a different version of the same problem. Amanda talked about the crushing pressure of being the good one, the constant fear that one mistake would revoke her special status. I shared how the continual dismissal of my contributions had damaged my self-worth and made me hesitant to share my accomplishments or needs. What I'm hearing, Doctor, Randall said as our session neared its conclusion, is that each of you has been trapped in roles that were established long ago, influenced by your parents' own experiences, and reinforced over years of interaction. The good news is that awareness is the first step toward change. Now you can begin making different choices. She helped us establish concrete commitments for moving forward. My parents would acknowledge their pattern of favoritism and work consciously to distribute attention, recognition, and resources more equitably. Amanda would develop her own authentic identity and skills beyond being the perfect daughter, starting with a formal repayment plan for the embezzled funds and community service at a local business ethics organization. I would communicate my needs directly, rather than withdrawing or waiting for recognition, while developing healthier emotional boundaries with my family. We all agreed to monthly check-in sessions with Dr. Randall to maintain accountability and continue the work we had begun. As we left the counseling office, I felt cautiously optimistic. One session couldn't erase years of established patterns, but it had created a foundation for something new, a relationship based on honest communication and mutual respect, rather than assigned roles and unspoken resentments. True to my word, I provided the access codes to the fully recovered business website that afternoon. I had not only restored the original functionality, but had enhanced the security protocols, updated the design for better conversion rates, and implemented a more efficient inventory management system. This is incredible, Horace, Dad said, as I walked him through the improvements. I had no idea our old system could be this sophisticated. It couldn't. I rebuilt it from the ground up. The new system will be easier to maintain and expand as the business grows. We want to pay you properly for this work, Mom insisted. Professional rates, as we should have been doing all along. I've prepared an invoice, I replied, handing over a detailed accounting of the hours and expertise involved in the emergency recovery. The figure at the bottom was substantial but fair for the specialized work performed under pressure. Dad didn't blink at the amount, simply nodding and saying, "You've earned every penny, and we've taken you for granted for far too long." The following weeks brought significant changes. I found an affordable apartment closer to my new job and began the process of moving out. My parents helped with the move, something they had enthusiastically done for Amanda when she briefly had her own place, but had previously framed as my independent responsibility. Amanda followed through on creating a formal repayment agreement, with a schedule of monthly payments, plus interest and clear consequences if terms weren't met. More surprisingly, she enrolled in a coding boot camp, saying she wanted to develop practical skills that would make her genuinely valuable rather than just appealing. "I've been riding on charm and meeting expectations my whole life," she admitted, when I expressed surprise at her choice. "I want to be able to create something real, the way you do." 2 months later, I attended my first company presentation at Nexus Solutions, having successfully integrated into the development team and contributed to a significant project. I had mentioned it casually during a family dinner, not expecting much response. To my surprise, both my parents rearranged their schedules to attend. Seeing them in the audience, actually paying attention as I explained the technical solution I had helped develop, created a feeling I had almost given up, hoping for the simple but profound satisfaction of being seen and valued for my unique contributions. That December, we gathered for Christmas at my parents' house. The dynamic was noticeably different. Conversation flowed more equitably, with my parents making conscious efforts to engage with both of us about our respective interests and accomplishments. The gift exchange was particularly telling, thoughtfully selected presents of approximately equal value for both Amanda and me, focused on our individual interests rather than reinforcing old hierarchies. "We have something else for both of you," Dad announced after the main gifts had been opened. He handed us each an envelope. Inside was documentation for minority ownership stakes in the family business, equal shares for both of us. "We want you both involved in the company's future," he explained. "Amanda's marketing insights and Horace's technical expertise are both valuable, different, but equally important. And whether or not you choose to be actively involved," Mom added, "we want you to share in what we've built, equally." Later that evening, as Amanda and I helped with dishes while our parents prepared coffee, she nudged my arm lightly. "Remember when we were kids and you built that simple computer game? The one where little pixel people had to cross a bridge while avoiding trolls?" I smiled at the distant memory. "You're the only one who ever played it. It was really good. I was jealous that you could make something like that out of nothing." That's when I started trying to be perfect at everything else, because I knew I couldn't compete with you on technical creativity. "And I was jealous of how effortlessly you seemed to win their approval," I admitted. "I guess we were both so focused on what the other had that we couldn't appreciate our own strengths." She nodded thoughtfully. "Do you think Mom and Dad will really change for good? Or will they slip back into old habits once the crisis feeling fades?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Probably some of both. But now we're all aware of the pattern, and that makes it harder to fall back into it completely. Plus, I have healthy boundaries now, including this lovely apartment I can retreat to when family dynamics get overwhelming." Amanda laughed. "And I have my repayment plan to keep me humble and accountable." As we rejoined our parents in the living room, I realized that the family we were building now wasn't perfect or completely healed, but it was more honest and balanced than it had ever been. The painful crisis had forced all of us to confront patterns that might otherwise have continued indefinitely, damaging our relationships beyond repair. Standing up for myself hadn't been about revenge or proving who was right. It had been about creating the possibility for something better. A family where differences were respected rather than ranked, where value wasn't conditional on meeting specific expectations, and where mistakes could be acknowledged and forgiven rather than hidden or denied. The gleaming new iPhone 17 still sat on Amanda's nightstand, but it had lost its power as a symbol of inequity and favoritism. It was just a phone now, a useful tool, but not a measure of worth or love. The real value was in what we were building together. A family dynamic based on mutual respect and understanding, one difficult conversation at a time. As we shared stories and laughter that evening, I caught my mother watching me with an expression I'd rarely seen directed my way, not just love, which had always been there beneath the surface, but genuine admiration and interest in who I was, not just what I could do for her. It was the look I had craved my entire life, without fully realizing it. The look that said, "I see you, I value you, exactly as you are." The road ahead would have its challenges as we all unlearned lifelong habits and established new ways of relating to each other. But for the first time, I felt confident that we were all heading in the same direction, with shared commitment to creating something healthier than what we had known before. Sometimes the most valuable lessons are the ones that seem most painful in the moment. My parents had bought my sister an iPhone 17 while I still used an iPhone 7, but that small inequity had ultimately led to a priceless gift for all of us: the chance to break destructive patterns and build authentic connections that no money could buy and no technology could facilitate. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your family, or felt like your contributions weren't valued the same as someone else's? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content that explores complex family dynamics and personal growth. Don't forget to share with anyone who might be struggling with similar situations. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these experiences is the first step toward healing. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you courage in addressing any unbalanced relationships in your own life.